I was like, wait, I think we're on the same time zone.
Yes, no, it was just I was like, at first I couldn't get it to connect because I didn't have I don't know, I had to change like two settings, but then it was fine.
Oh, no problem.
Hi everybody. We
Hello.
are we're using new tech and we got to figure out if we're actually like really for real live. It looks like we are. Okay,
We
awesome.
are. Yeah, I'm getting the notifications on my phones too. Oh, we
Yay.
are. Will we
Okay.
be able to see questions pop up? Do I need to look on here or on Facebook?
So I have my phone pulled up, and what I can also do is give everybody the link. Let me do that while we're just kind of like feeling our way through dealing with technology we don't normally deal with, guys. So just give us a second. But I'm Heather Wild. This is the Get ROI, Not Debt and Regret Summit, and I am so excited to bring you Natori Arrindell today because she is going to be giving us some really great insights on how to look at, that's not what I want, how to look at contracts before we sign them. So while I'm playing with this, Notori, if you'll introduce yourself and
Sure.
talk about your expertise.
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Natori Arrindell. I am a business and brand protection attorney, and I help entrepreneurs legally protect their 6 and 7 figure growing brands. So today we're definitely going to be talking about what to look for in these contracts. A lot of things right now, as you are aware, especially with this whole week-long summit, is how to pick the proper business coach. So while you're vetting your coaches on their expertise and their knowledge, how to pick, I think yesterday probably was like how to pick a publicist, how to pick a copywriter. You want to make sure when you're entering into these agreements that they're actually legally binding agreements, but not only that, but to make sure that you are truly getting what you're expecting and putting that on paper. So I am so excited to be here today. I think if we have time, we'll do some hot seat coaching as well, looking at some contracts if possible, if you all have questions about some. I know there's one that you and I discussed earlier this week about a clause that some business coaches are putting in their contracts and really trying to maybe possibly be a scare tactic. So we'll definitely talk about that as well.
Awesome. Okay, so I have the link in the comments, y'all. If you want to come on while we're live, I'm guessing we're gonna go until almost 3 because this is such a juicy topic. If Notori has time,
Yeah,
if she
sure.
doesn't, then we got to honor her time, right? But this is like if you don't have time to watch any other interviews in this summit, watch Notori's and watch Sarah Wald's talking about boundaries and how to deal with abusive people, because that happens a lot in coaching too,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. But yeah, really excited for everybody who's joining us live. I think Alyssa was on live at least for a second. So yeah, um, so you're a brand strategist. No. You're a lawyer for people that are growing their brands and they want to make sure that they're protected with like trademarks and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. A complete holistic approach of making sure that your business itself, if you're saying you're a business coach, you want to make sure you're a true owner of a business. So making sure that everything is sound and registered properly, that you have, of course, the contracts in place, but then able to then just strategize and build your business. We are entrepreneurs. Of course, everybody wants to reach. They always say the 6 figure mark is easy to get to. The 7 figure mark is the hard one. So just finding different ways to build passive income as well, making sure that you're monetizing your brands, so that if you want to step away from one-on-one coaching and you want to go into group coaching, or if you want to launch an actual signature event, how you're able to do that and just strategizing behind like the business and operational portion to make sure that you can still grow your business without having to be hands-on in your business.
I love that. Yeah. So, okay, that's very interesting. Because I've seen people that specialize in online law,
Mhm.
and talk to people about contracts and have templates and everything, which I think you have that as well,
Yes.
right? But I haven't met anybody who also was a business strategist on top of the law background. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
And y'all, like, not only is she a lawyer, but she's familiar, like she works online, she is an online entrepreneur, she's familiar with the online world. And not all lawyers are created equal. Some are great, some suck. A lot of what we're talking about, how to recognize great coaches and healers and stuff, could probably be applied to everything, how to find like a good lawyer.
Mhm.
But just because somebody's a great lawyer, if they don't, even if they're a great business lawyer, if they don't understand the online world, it's going to kind of put you at a disadvantage. So would you say that's something that people definitely need to look for when if they're an online entrepreneur?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because there are different types of laws that you may not even think about that a just regular business lawyer may not think of. They may be used to people with brick and mortar stores, so they're going to be thinking more of licensing and permits, to run that actual physical business. Whereas my specialty is helping that online business owner, like you mentioned, think about, okay, what type of website policies do you need? How do
Mhm.
you make a legally protected onboarding system? How do you have a compliance system, not just, protecting your brand and your likeness, but also making sure that the way that you're accepting payments, the way that you're processing your payments, if you're in compliance with holding clients' credit cards, making sure that all of those aspects of your business are sound and protected so that, if you are an online expert, you have that field, what your God-given talent is to give to your clients. But we want to make sure that that talent is not shut down by you not knowing, oh, wow, I'm not, I don't have compliance with my website, or I don't have a proper, my booking system. Yeah, people can just pay, but I'm not using the proper verbiage. I'm actually setting myself up for more exposure to have to refund money to clients, not because they weren't satisfied with your services, but just because your actual process was not correct and not in compliance.
Yeah. And like, I'm fairly savvy about some of this stuff, but some of the stuff she just listed, I'm like, whoa. um, So, and I think it would be great to have you come back and do a deeper dive on how we can protect ourselves as business owners with our own contracts.
Absolutely.
Because I think that that's almost like a whole separate topic
It
than,
is.
yeah. And
It definitely is.
so nuanced and complex. So guys, at any time, if you want to hop into the Zoom and be live, or if you want to leave comments in the Facebook group under this, you can. We may or may not see them depending on how friendly technology is today. But we would love to have some real world situations for Natori to weigh in on, right?
Yeah.
Um, okay. So before we get like really into how to protect from contracts and everything, I do want to ask you some of the questions that I asked the other people on the summit. So I think I know the answer to this, but like what types of entrepreneurs could use law advice for their business?
Every entrepreneur that wants to stay in business. And really, like, there's layers to, just like there's layers to our different programs. There may be a general low barrier program, there may be a mid-ticket offer, and then a high ticket offer. There's different levels of how much legal advice or guidance that you need. You may not, starting off, need an in-house counsel attorney, but you may just need to sit down and have someone to bounce some ideas off of and to give you solid advice, legal advice on, okay, yes, this is something that you can do. This is something that could be lucrative. These are some issues that you may need to look into. And then going from there. So it's not just a lot of entrepreneurs that some that I've spoken with will say, I don't think I can afford a lawyer. I'm just starting off. It's really like, you don't have to hire somebody. It's just get with someone, have a consultation, get their expertise, and then decide, okay, as my business expands, then find that person that can grow alongside you with your business.
I love that. I love that. I've often told, newer coaches or newer entrepreneurs that I work with, I'm like, have some kind of contract, have some kind of agreement that, clearly spells out what you're going to do, what the client needs to do, the payment, just like the base, if nothing else, have a basic agreement that really spells out everything, right? But eventually you do need to have a lawyer like look over your contract and just tighten it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. I'm trying to think of like, because I didn't bring my questions in front of me.
Oh no, you're fine.
Um,
I'm gonna try to see if I can log on to see if anyone is asking questions.
I don't see anybody asking questions
Okay.
right now. We've got one live viewer. Hi.
Hello.
um, but people are busy.
Okay.
And a lot of people, they're not really getting how important this is. And I don't,
Mhm.
it's one of those frustrating things as an entrepreneur, like, and I'm sure you run into this, right? Like most people get why they need a business coach, right? But trying to explain to somebody why they need law help, I imagine can be a harder sell.
It depends. It truly depends on the entrepreneur. It really depends on if they're either I have proactive clients and reactive clients. So
Mm,
my proactive clients are the ones that are okay. I may not even be at the six-figure mark, but let's sit down and build out a legal blueprint to see what I need to do, what legal assets need to protect me and my business. And then as we go, okay, let's talk more. And then I have some entrepreneurs that are the, oh my gosh, I need your help. SHIT has hit the fan. Like I
right.
really like I don't know what to do now. And it's like, okay, well, some of these things could have been avoided, but you meet people where they are. And just like in the business coaching, the industry, it's like, okay, well, I just have some ideas. I may not even know what my signature offer is yet to start
Right.
making, having a 5-figure launch. Well, okay, let's have a consultation, a strategy session. And then there's some business entrepreneurs that are looking for business coaches that are like, I've spent thousands of dollars and I didn't vet the proper coach, or I've been trying to DIY everything myself. Now I need help. And when we sit down with them and give them that our expertise, then they realize, oh wow, had I just truly realized and saw the transformation and the value, I probably would have, not had a lot of the mistakes that I had before. But
Nope.
as experts, we can meet them where they are. It may be a longer transformation, and sometimes in my field, it may be too late, but we try to do whatever is best that we can.
Right. Right. Um, Yeah, no, I can totally see that being the case. And I think there is, yeah, there's the people that are, proactive and want a business coach because they recognize, the value already. And then there's the people who, yeah, they're like,
Yeah.
I can't do this on my own anymore. I need help.
Yeah.
But yeah, about the summit, like it's so clear to me why people need this information
Mhm.
that it's been really hard for me to convey to people how important it is because it just
Mhm.
makes so much sense to me. And there's just
Yeah.
been, this is what happens with our marketing. Like we put out something and we're really passionate about it, but being passionate about it and actually being able to connect it to the audience can be really difficult. So
Very much so.
um it's okay. This information is going to be out there for people to use when they're
It is. It is. No, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. It truly is. And I love the honesty of all the experts that you've had come up. I was listening earlier before our session. I think it was the lady that was a copywriter, how she was saying, if you're not making $3,000 yet a month in your business, you don't need to be outsourcing anything. You need to be bootstrapping it and doing it on your own. And I thought that was so valuable now because in this day and age, everyone's trying to make a dollar. Everybody's trying to have a 5-figure offer, a signature offer, a 5-figure launch, and whatnot. And we forget why we're truly in business. Now, some of us are in business just, to live our lives and have the type of lifestyle that we want, but some
right.
are actually in business to give our talents to help somebody have a transformation. And if you can't be truly honest, and say, hey, even if they're ready to pay. I mean, I've turned away some clients before that were ready to pay.
Yeah.
They saw the transformation, but they weren't right for the offer at that time because it wasn't gonna it wasn't going to help. Sure, I could sign them up, take their money, but it's not for me. I'm more so about having longevity and actual clientele and not transactions. So there's a big difference once you realize that one, all money is not good money, and then two, every transaction is not for you. Just some people work off of quantity versus quality, but it'll come to bite you, whether it's in your business or when you're looking for a coach and you're not properly aligned with someone. So yeah.
So well said. And y'all during all the interviews, like almost every single person has said something. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about. When I say high integrity entrepreneur, this
Yeah.
is the mark of a high integrity entrepreneur, where she's like, not all money is good money. And just because somebody wants to give me money doesn't mean that I'm going to take it, because if it's not actually going to help that person, you
Mhm.
know, my feeling from Natori, and full transparency. So I have not worked with Natori, but somebody recommended her as a trademark lawyer a few months ago. And we talked, and she was very, you know, very generous and very friendly and very professional. And she told me what she could do for me, but there was no pressure at all.
Yeah.
So when it came to the summit, I was like, we got to have Notori
I appreciate it. Absolutely.
come. But yeah, like, and also just, it's like, I love that you mentioned the thing about, it's just bad business. Like, not only is taking somebody's money when it's not actually what they need right then to help them, not only is that morally wrong, in my opinion, but
Mhm.
as she said, it's going to bite you in the ass,
Mhm.
right? Like, you'd much rather not have, I would much rather have somebody like not hire me right now. Maybe they'll be ready. But regardless, I don't get my energy drained by somebody who's not getting good results. They don't get a chip on their shoulder against me because they didn't get good results.
Mhm.
And I've got more space for the aligned clients to
Mhm.
continue coming in and to continue having a track record of, you know, people get good results with me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about contracts,
Okay.
and, you know, kind of like, what are good, well, let's talk about the bad signs first, and we'll end on a positive note. We'll talk about the good signs
Okay.
um in contracts. So when we're hiring someone, I think the first thing is, if somebody doesn't have a contract, that is a huge red flag.
Huge red flag. Huge, huge, huge red flag, because one, you're lacking clarity. You don't know exactly what you're going to be receiving. You don't know, emails are great, but I always tell clients, and I always use examples of, okay, if you had to go on Judge Judy to sue this person, do you think Judge Judy would prefer for you to hand to her bailiff your contract? Or do you think she would prefer you picking up pieces of paper like, well, here's this note, here's this email, and trying to
Mhm.
paint a picture, when the contract is going to be the full book that a judge would need in order to weigh, in your favor. So making sure that you have clarity, putting everything on paper is definitely, that would be a red flag for sure if they don't have a contract, especially if they're a business owner. And then think about it. What are you going to them for? Are you
Right.
going to them for business coaching to teach you how to have a 5-figure launch? Okay, well, they need to have some type of business acumen to themselves. And if they don't have a contract, you need to wonder, okay, well, what am I going to be receiving? Is this just going to be a zip file with some swipe copy and, some videos, or is
For
this going
just
to be
$10,000.
exactly. So yeah, making sure that you have clarity with having just a contract in general. That, yeah, you need a contract, something.
Something.
Yeah.
And I've talked to Notori a little bit about my own situation. So I had a situation over the summer where I clicked a little box before putting in my credit card information, and that was the contract. And I was not I was dealing with a lot of buried trauma over the summer, so I wasn't really in my right mind, and so I wasn't as careful as I normally was.
Mhm.
And, you know, no contract was ever sent to me. And so I was like, there wasn't a contract when I had to dispute the charges, because this person kept promising that they were going to deliver my graphics and, you know, all the stuff, and
Yeah.
it didn't happen. And no, that little checking that thing was a contract.
Yeah. And it's very much, it's very much enforceable. So a lot of this, sometimes, like I was telling you, you got to realize like okay, things to look for. For instance, if they have where you're checking out on like a shopping cart, if it says checkbox, yes, I agree to these terms and conditions, make sure you're clicking on that hyperlink. And then you want to screenshot whatever is within that hyperlink, because let's say they don't offer that service anymore. A couple months later, you want to go back and reference what you agreed to. The landing page is gone or the card is gone. You have no way to legally protect yourself. So while you are, reading or making sure that somebody has a contract, you have to be honest with yourself too, like you were about saying, okay, let me make sure, was there something that I clicked off and agreed to? we agree, they're called click wrap agreements. So we agree to those all the time. When we buy iPhones or Androids, after we open it and we start clicking through just to get to the setup, we're agreeing to a lot of different terms and conditions that, you know, we may not have copies of. They offer it to you in the fine print of where you can, you know, get them, but nobody thinks to look there. So just making sure that you know where to look, and then if, you know, if there is something.
No, I love that. And it's a great point, you know, to do that screenshot, because what happened with me is I went back and I have no way of knowing if
Mhm.
the agreement is written the same now as it
Right.
was when I clicked it, right? I don't have
Right.
any proof. But I also think that that is a red flag. If a coach is just using the click thing and they're not sending you any written document that they've signed and you've signed so that you have copy for your records, to
Mhm.
me, that's a red flag.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say also it really depends on, or at least how I kind of, because I have that built into some of my services. I have a click wrap where you click off on the terms and conditions before you can purchase it. But then of course I'll also send it to you so you don't actually have to sign it, but it's based on a certain price point. If I'm offering something over, I would say $3,500, no, you're not even able to go on a page and just pay without me having you sign a contract first. Because I want to make sure that before I take your payment, because let's be honest, as a business owner, we have to pay processing fees. And then if you decide within 2 or 3 days that this is not something that you want, or if I discern that after our first call, it's not, we're not properly aligned, I want to be able to refund you your money. Or if you want to ask for your money back, you want to make sure that, okay, well, if they're asking for their money back because they just said, oh, she wears blue, I don't like the color blue, you know, obviously that's not going to uphold. But you as the consumer had the right to review the contract, and you agreed to a termination clause, which is another thing that needs to be in a contract. You agreed to that, you agreed to the terms and conditions, and then you paid. So just making sure they're offering you to review the contract first before
Yes.
you tender any type of payment to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's all too often, you know, give me a deposit or, you know, full pay or whatever they're demanding at sword
Mhm.
point, practically.
Yeah.
But like fucking pirates, man. But without, I mean, without the cute, you know, sassy eye patches. And they're like, you know, give me the money and then I'm going to send you the contract. No.
No, I want to see the contract first. Think about it. When you sign a lease, now sometimes you have to pay a deposit, but they even tell you, you know, this deposit goes towards X, Y, and Z. It's either refundable or non-refundable.
Right.
Before you're supposed, or at least hopefully you all are doing this, but before you enter into some type of lease agreement, whether it's for a rental property, an apartment, they give you the lease to sign first before what? They give you the keys. So you
Right.
should be signing and reviewing your contracts before you're actually paying and receiving the service, so that you know what you're signing up for.
Absolutely. And that was a huge thing. I'm rewriting the book. I wrote a book, published a book called The Online Entrepreneur Survival Guide, and I'm rewriting it and breaking it down, and making it shorter and just like less angry, because I was really pissed when I wrote the
Oh.
first one. But I was going through last night and talking about, you know, what do we need to look for with contracts, and I was like, don't give somebody a dime, not even a deposit, until you have not only seen the contract but had ample time to go
To
through it,
review it.
to
Mhm.
review it. And this is
And be able to ask questions. A lot of things that I
yes.
tell some of my clients too, especially this is very popular with clients that have brick and mortar stores. Before you sign a lease agreement, ask them, hey, is this open for, I need some time. Can you give me a certain amount of time for my attorney to review the lease agreement?
Mm-hmm.
Because you'd be surprised. Some of those lease agreements, most of them are horrible. Commercial lease agreements have different rules and regulations than, you know, private lease agreements for homes and whatnot. So just make sure, if somebody pushes back and says, well, what do you need somebody to review the contract for? That's a red flag. You know,
Yes.
if your contract is fine and it's for the benefit of both of us, why, you know, why is there a concern about me having a fresh set of eyes look at the contract? So I can't. Or if they say, oh no, the contract is as is. Now, some, depending on who you're contracting with, may be as is. And then that's when you have to make the decision of whether or not you've done enough due diligence on this person to be confident and comfortable with entering into the contract. If after you've read it, you see a few things that may not benefit you, or you see a few things that you want to kind of negotiate in the contract. So I think a lot of us kind of get so hyped up on the marketing of working with certain people that we kind of forget our own common sense to say, wait a minute, this may actually not be great, but we're into this scarcity, the marketing tactic of being scarce, and, oh, you're not serious if you don't want to pay for this. And it's just like, okay, no, I am serious. And that's why I want to, review the contract first, so that I make sure that we both are serious and both on the same page. So I think a lot of us get kind of bullied into signing some of these agreements, because some people do have, contracts. Not everybody doesn't have one, but it's about what's in there, if you have time to review it, and if you can negotiate some of the terms.
So many things. Oh my God, so much goodness in there. The first thing I'll talk about is, you're very right that we get caught up in the hustle. So many of the tactics that are used in marketing and in sales, whether it's a sales page or a sales post, or actually being on a call with somebody, are designed to, it's think about like Ocean's 11, right? Think about any con artist movie that you've ever watched. They will talk loud, they will talk fast, they get you excited, they try to make you feel like an opportunity is running out, and the whole thing is designed to get you moving at their pace and moving fast so that you're more manipulatable, right?
Sales psychology.
Yeah, so it's con artist tactics, like literally, like it's all about, like, it's not about sales as service and making sure they're the right fit. It's just, how do I make this person buy as quickly as possible so that I can meet my sales goals? So I can brag about higher income in my marketing, and so I beat myself up for falling for this stuff for a long time. But the more I understand about trauma and how it affects us, and the more I understand about NLP, which is a fantastic method, modality for transformation when it's used consensually. But when it's used in marketing, it powerfully works on our subconscious. And when it's used in a very negative way in marketing, it really gets us emotionally dysregulated, which Alyssa's watching. Alyssa and I talked about this in her interview, because she's a breathwork coach and she helps people regulate. And we were talking about this, the marketing and sales is designed to put you off balance and get you moving fast and get you to bully you and make you feel like you're going to miss out on something, or, this person's the only person they're going to help you. Anybody who makes you feel like they're your last chance, or their program is your last chance, you do not want to work with that person. Run like hell. Don't even look at their contract. Just run.
Yeah. We all have horror stories. I can remember, and there was no contract. And if it was probably a lot of fluff. That's another red flag. If the contracts are, if you're going to be working with a coach and for, let's say, 2 to 3 months, and it's very specific, it's a group coaching program or whatnot, and the contract is extremely long, you need somebody to review through it, because what could possibly and when I say long, I'm talking like 10, 20, 30 pages. That a lot of that is kind of a red flag, because there's probably things that you're agreeing to that you don't even know that you're agreeing to, which just goes back to the whole, just because there is a contract still doesn't mean it's a good contract. I've seen 1-page contracts that are more powerful than a 20, 30-page contract. So sometimes it's fluff, like in some of these coaching programs. Oh, we have 30 modules. You're going to get 15 templates. You're going to get 10 coaching calls, extended support. And it's a bunch of fluff. It's not anything of substance.
Nope. It looks impressive. It looks like they're being so generous, but it's not stuff that's actually going to help. And even if it is quality stuff, especially in the group programs, you're not going to have enough support to actually be able to apply what you learn effectively
Yeah.
to your business. You may
Yeah.
apply it, you may get a little bit of help applying it, but chances are 6 months later, you're going to be exhausted and frustrated because you still don't understand why you're not making sales, or you're not,
Right.
leveling in your income.
Right.
Yeah, the fluff stuff. You said something, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just laughing.
You said something really powerful, that I don't know if everybody caught, but that is that, and you did talk about, some people are like, as is, line in the sand. If you don't sign this, we're not working together, whatever. And that's kind of how we got on the tangent of, if somebody's really, really, really like that, and the
Mhm.
contract is just, just walk away. They're not the only person that
Yeah.
can help you. But you actually mentioned like negotiating with people about their
Hmm.
contract. Can you say a
Hmm.
little bit more about that? Because I don't think people
Yeah.
know that they have that option.
Yeah, so and it truly just depends on who you're going to be contracting with, because it's not an automatic option. You don't have it's not like, oh, this is my legal right to be able to negotiate a contract. If as a business owner they say the contract is as is, then that's that.
Right.
But sometimes they are willing, if they really want to work with you, they may say, okay, well, let's sit down, send me your red lines. What part of the contract do you want to negotiate? Now, that's not saying in no means negotiating their rate. That's
Right.
more so saying negotiating maybe some of the stipulations, if it's a governing law stipulation, which means if there is a dispute, what state that you would be able to sue in. It may be the fees and the payment terms. If it's not something that aligns with what you all discussed prior, being able to negotiate that. Or if you didn't discuss it, if that's something that's stopping you, if you can't, not everybody can just, pay in full. And even if you can pay in full, you may not, you may not want to. So being able to just
I don't
ask,
recommend it.
yeah, being able to just ask those questions. Termination clauses. Okay, if we realize this isn't a right fit, is there an out clause, or do I have to pay out the duration of the contract? Just being just being able to sit and talk with them, because sometimes I think we get kind of scared because they have worked us up. They have, played with our psychology and been like, okay, well, you're not serious about your business if you don't sign right now, pay and get started tomorrow. So we're like, okay, we're just in such a rush to enter into the agreement and to pay, to prove a point. It's more, I feel like sometimes it's more of a pride thing. Oh, what do they mean I'm not serious about my business? Of course I am. Here you go. Instead of stepping back and being like, okay, let me calm down, let me refocus. Now, there are some things in this contract that I have questions about, just being able to get clarity on them, but having that dialogue before you feel like you have to sign it.
Yes, yes, and yes. Um, so I had I'm on a rampage about the termination clauses, because
Oh, goodness.
for years, no, I mean, and even before my situation this summer, that is just, it's just the most recent point of why these are just ridiculous. But well, I had a mentor back when I was an escort. I had a hooker mentor, and she tried to give me a 50-year non-terminable contract that guaranteed her 20% of my income for the rest of my life, with no termination clause. And I was going to have to pay for her insurance and her vacations and everything. And this woman was like a mother to me, but she was really a long-term con artist. And I looked at it and I was like, you wouldn't speak to the person who was dumb enough to sign this contract. Like, there's no fucking way. And I walked away. And so I've been aware of this for a long time. And then I come into the coaching industry and I see these same kind of games being played. And I'm like, I expect this in a legal industry. I don't expect this in an industry where people are we're supposed to be about helping people,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and I think that's one of the things that happens is we have rose colored glasses and we're just like, oh, I'm here to help people. If this person's a coach or a healer, then they're here to help people too.
Mhm.
Maybe,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe not. Um, but yeah, I mean, we were really like, in the beginning, it was like, oh, we don't have a termination clause because we only work with people who are all in. And what that statement is subtly shaming you and implying that if you need a termination clause, it's because you're not serious, you're not all in, you're not really committed, you're not going to make it, right? So there's very subtle mind games that get played, like, pricking your pride, like, oh, if you don't sign up today, you're not serious. What's really interesting so often is how these really toxic people will switch a term and make it mean its opposite. And so, like, there's one coach who she talks about empowered buyers, empowered buyers, empowered buyers. Her definition of an empowered buyer is someone who buys without asking questions. They buy in a hurry and they don't ask questions. And I'm like, that is the exact opposite of an empowered buyer.
Yeah, no. And I've been in coaching programs. So yeah, and no, an empowered buyer is one that doesn't ask questions. No, the only way that I would maybe what she was hoping to say is that her messaging was so empowering and that she was able to show the transformation of what she was going to provide so that the client saw, okay, she's providing the transformation. But that means your messaging has to be on point. That has nothing to do with my pockets at all.
But even if somebody's messaging is on point, doesn't mean that their delivery will be on point.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And so her thing was like, I've answered all your questions on my sales page, so you shouldn't have any other questions. And I'm like, yeah, that's not how it works, right?
How are you going to be my coach? I'm going to have questions throughout the whole process. If you don't want to ask questions, you don't want to answer my questions, and I'm trying to give you my money, but I would just need my question asked. Then once you get my money, you have no motivation to assist me afterwards.
Well, and the funny thing was, like, she was very responsive in Voxer, and she showed up to all the calls and everything. There were a lot of ways that she really did deliver, and she was one of these well, before I get into that, let me say, like, about the termination clauses, right? Because this is so important, right? So if anybody's trying to gaslight you and bullshit you about why it's in your best interest to not have a termination clause, that's a red flag.
Yeah, you definitely need to have a termination clause in the contract. Now, plain devil's advocate, what that termination clause says needs to depend specifically on the product or service that you're receiving. For instance, I have a termination clause which states that you still are responsible for the fee for a on-demand course, because once you have access to my on-demand course, you could go in there and attempt to download or whatever within a day, 2 days, 3 days, because we still have to protect ourselves from con artists as clients. So that termination clause states there is no termination. Once you pay, that's it, because you've received the product or you've received the service. But then in some of my other services, there's a termination clause that states, okay, let's say for longer one-on-one coaching, if you can give a 30-day or 60-day notice, but you may have a specific kill contract fee. So where they still have to pay you, because as a business owner, you still are canceling your time or putting this person on your calendar to reserve your time from other clients. So you do still need to be compensated, but they, as the client, need to have some type of way to get out of the contract while still, as a business owner, you're compensated for putting your time away. But it still really depends on what type of product. Digital products, oh, there is no termination, there is no refund, things like that. But if it's where you're working one-on-one and you realize, no, this isn't a good fit, I personally don't even like contracts more than 3 months. When I offer services to clients, to business owners, it's for a quarter, and you can renew on a quarterly basis, because one, we may not like each other. We may not like each other, or you may be asking for things, and I realize the transformation you thought you were going to get is not the transformation that I was going to deliver. And then we're able to part ways. But 6-month, year contracts, there is no person that I contract with for a year, because people change, or if I feel like you're not taking the program seriously, or you're not providing me what I need in order to do my job, you're not
Mhm.
going to say, because this is a partnership. I can only help you by you providing me what I need.
Yep.
And I don't want to be stuck. And like you said earlier, you having a chip on your shoulder about me because you didn't receive what you thought you were, but it's truly you weren't in this
Right.
coaching program, or you weren't delivering what you needed as a client.
Right. And that's, another place where a contract ideally is really specific about your obligations as the client, but
Mm-hmm.
also their obligations.
Mm-hmm.
So, like in the situation that, I'm in with this person that I should not have invested with over the summer, their contract was all about covering their ass. There was no, like you mentioned, something earlier, I don't know the exact language, but how it struck me was like, does the contract read like it's trying to protect everybody, right? Or it's
Right.
trying to be fair, at least to everybody?
Yeah.
Or is it very one-sided, right?
Yeah.
And this, click box that I did, it was like, yeah, there's no cancellation and no refunds, but there was no stipulations in the contract about like the deadlines they had for it was partially a done for you service.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no specifications about,
Yeah.
dates or even a time period, like within 4 weeks of signing up from this, you're going to have X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And when they weren't delivering things on time, I didn't have a leg to stand on because
Yeah.
I didn't have a contract, or I hadn't thoroughly looked at that contract, because I would have said no,
Yeah.
but I wasn't in my right mind,
Yeah.
and I needed
Yeah.
somebody to take my credit card away.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. That's like unrealistic promises or unrealistic expectations also. If somebody's saying, "Oh, I think you had a post earlier, I can show you how to make 30K or something in
In
3
30
days."
days, even if you're a
Yeah,
new business owner.
that's unrealistic. That's unrealistic. And yeah, a contract, that's not even a contract issue. That's more of just a probably need to just learn how to do some due diligence, and then really just business basics one-on-one. Anything guaranteeing some type of ROI, like, and at that level, I don't know.
Right, right, right. Well, and that's what I find really interesting too. So I have a friend who just did a super expensive group program
Hmm.
with somebody who's really well known and has a really great reputation, and she didn't get anything out of it. It actually
Yeah.
hurt her business trying to fit herself into this cookie cutter thing. But
Yeah.
they have this ironclad contract. There's no refunds, you can't terminate, yada yada. And I think it's a red flag, actually,
Mhm.
if somebody's marketing is all about like, I can show you how to make, X amount of ridiculous amount of money in such a short time and blah, blah, blah. But then you go to their contract and it's
Mhm.
all about, we're not responsible for your results and we can't guarantee anything. Like, there's a
Yeah,
disconnect there.
it is a disconnect, and that's difficult. That I'm sure that's difficult. Luckily, that's nothing to do with what the services I offer. Everything I say is we cannot guarantee, and the only thing that I can guarantee is that I provided you the sound legal advice based on your situation.
Mhm.
For instance, when I file trademarks for clients, we do a search, but once I submit that application, your end result is now in the hands of a third party.
The government, right?
Yeah, the government, they're going to have to review the application, and then they make a decision based on their own knowledge as to whether or not something is out there that would cause some type of confusion. So what I can guarantee is that we're going to do our part, but
Mhm.
when you're working with third parties, that's really difficult. And then also, you don't even know the work ethic of your client that you're dealing with to say that you can guarantee them X amount. So I can see where a contract, because I've been in programs where they say we can not necessarily guarantee you a 5 or 6 figure launch, but we can show you the steps and how to have one. But in
Mhm.
order to have a successful launch, I had to do a lot of the work. It's like you can, what is it? You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So we have to be honest
Yes.
with ourselves too. Yeah.
1,000%. And this is where I've had like a lot of like kind of side conversations about this, right? So
Mhm.
if people are making out like really, really bold claims in their marketing, that they know that only a certain level of entrepreneur is going to be able to come in and actually get those results.
Yeah.
And they want to have that really like flashy marketing. I'm okay with that so long as when people start showing up to buy, they sort them out.
Oh
And
yeah,
they're
you
like,
have to have a sales
hey,
call.
right. That's my problem. Like, ethical selling is about actually doing your due diligence as the seller to make sure this person is the right fit. And then what I do is I know that when people come to me and they're already making some sales and they've got, some momentum in their business, but there's gaps in some of their implementation. There's gaps in their messaging. There's some gaps in their skills. They don't know how to nurture leads. They don't know how to pre-qualify people. They have no idea how to close a sale, right? But they've got some momentum in their business. I know that I can take them through a 5-week program that is going to double their sales, right?
Yeah.
But I'm very specific about who that is for. If somebody shows up, if I'm marketing that and somebody shows up and they're like, yeah, I really haven't made any sales yet, or, I made some sales, but I haven't made any sales in 6 months, then I'm going to be like, yeah, you need this different program of mine.
Right.
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 Or you need, hey, here's somebody that I think might be able to help you, go talk to them. Right. That I don't have a problem with. So that whole conversation about, our coaches responsible for their clients' results, yes and no. I think that, no, we can't do the work for them, but I think that we have to be picky about who we let hire us. And then
Absolutely.
I created an escape clause, is what I call my termination clause. And it very clearly spells out, this is why the client can fire me, including just life threw them a curveball they didn't expect, and
Yeah.
they just need out. Like, they can't do this right now.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to try to coach you through like when you really need to be at the hospital by your, husband's
Right.
side for the next 3 months. Like,
Right. Right.
this is not
Right.
the right time. Right. But then I have it spelled clearly, like why I can fire them, and if they're showing up and causing me stress and they're not doing the work, and I don't think that they're on track to get the results, I'm going to end the contract. And then, it spells out like, this is how long I have to get their money back to them if they prepaid for everything. And this is how much, or this is how much money, how much time they have to get me any money that's that they haven't paid for any coaching they've already received. Right.
Right.
And
Right.
so that way, like, nobody's going through my program and just not getting
A
results.
result. Yeah.
They're either not going to hire me I'm not going to let them hire me in the first place, or I'm going to fire them
Yeah.
before, or I'll have a serious conversation with them first. I'm not just going to be like, see ya. I'm going to be like, hey, look.
Dispute resolution. That's another thing that needs to be in contracts. Dispute resolution. Yep. Yeah. No, just going along with what you were saying, like how,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's how I kind of stay in integrity. I will go back to, so I had one person that I hired at the beginning of the year who was a hypnotherapist, and I read through her contract and she didn't have a termination clause. And I went to her and I said, listen, I said, I'm not comfortable signing this unless we have something in writing saying that, if I get through month 2 and I decide that I want to quit, then you have to give me my money back for month 3. And she actually added it. And then there's other people that I worked with in the last year that I wanted to ask that, but I backed down because I was in that mindset of like, I needed them, and got bit in the ass with it, actually. But yeah, you can ask people respectfully. You don't want to go in with an attitude, your contract is stupid, I'm not signing this.
Right.
You could just be like, hey, there's a couple things that that I'd like to talk to you about, and how they respond is going to tell you a lot about whether or not there's somebody you want to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then also just making sure, like I was saying, what you had mentioned just sparked it. Dispute resolution. We all are not going to agree eye to eye. So if there is something where the client feels they stand firm and that they're right, and we as business owners and experts feel like we're right, we need to have some type, instead of just going back and forth, okay, well, let's figure out before going the lawsuit route how to resolve this issue, and bring in a third party, having, some type of arbitration clause or having some type of mediation clause. You always want to have like a middle step before you go full out for litigation, because this this time everybody is so sue happy, but for not the right thing, not the right things. And you're gonna spend more money trying to prove a point and suing them than what the actual service, the service is worth. So having something in there stating, okay, if we can't agree, we can either go to mediation with a non-biased party and then try to come to a resolution, or if we don't feel like, if you're not the type to want to mediate, that's perfectly fine. You can go through arbitration, which is a smaller trial scenario where you can go, an arbitrator can then rule on the facts of what's going on, and then that would be what you all would, what you would do as far as the contract. But no termination clause at all. And I don't want to scare business owners, or saying like you can't, offer them some type of termination agreement, but have it in there. Even if it's a no refunds, no exchanges, put a termination in there and say no refunds, no exchanges. Because if it's not in there, you leave it too open for somebody else, a non-biased party, a judge, an arbitrator, a mediator, to then read the contract and then determine what were they thinking, what did they want to convey, which could possibly be the complete opposite of what you truly wanted to convey. So even if you say they can't get a refund regardless, that's completely up to you, but at least put it in there so they can see that.
Right, right. Um, so much good stuff. And I mean, we could talk about this for 4 hours, but this is a free summit. We're just trying to like get you in the know. It's kind of like a little
Yes.
crash course. Alyssa, or if you're still on, do you have a question for Natori? You could either hop on into the Zoom or you could just put it in the comments.
Yeah, I know one thing that we can talk about too was about non-disparagement clauses.
Oh,
So when you were asking me before about,
yeah.
can you hire a business coach, they have the perfect marketing, perfect landing pages, perfect funnel, everything. They checked all the boxes. You get into their program, you realize it's trash, or even not trash, it just didn't work for you. But you want to tell people, hey, you don't want to make a hate page or whatnot about them, but you at least want to disclose information on, I did not like this coach, this coach was not for me, but they have a clause in their contract that you sign about that you can't disclose information to anyone else, disparaging comments, negative comments about their program, their services, their products, or them as a company. And then if you do, they hit you with this big, fee of what they could possibly sue you for.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those are definitely enforceable. Whether or not you want to sign a contract that has that in there, as I would say, goes back to just like the due diligence of trying to vet the coach. So, it's a hot topic. I know somebody had asked me, well, doesn't that go against my First Amendment rights, the right to speech? But the First Amendment is for governments, like stating that they can put a law in place to not allow someone to speak publicly. Okay. If you waive your rights to speak publicly about something in a private contract, that doesn't apply. So I know a lot of people think, oh, that's nothing because my First Amendment right, but that's not what the First Amendment's right was designed for. So yeah, it's a hot topic for sure. Is it a red flag? I would say it's a red flag depending on the price that they put in there. Mm-hmm. Depending on the price. As a consumer, I can understand why because it may not be that I'm a bad lawyer or I'm a bad coach. It may just be that the person wasn't properly aligned or didn't come to the coaching calls or come to the program like they were supposed to and didn't get the transformation that they wanted. So instead of being honest with themselves, they want to point the blame at the coach. But, there are times where the coach just wasn't anything. And you do want to tell people, what your experience was. So I think it's really just a matter of what you're most comfortable with. But if it is like a crazy fee that's listed in there, I would definitely have a conversation about that.
Yeah. So I have two stories about that. One, I just found out recently, another person in the summit had worked with a coach and I believe paid something like $30,000 to work with this person. I think it was a one-to-one program, not sure. And there's somebody online right now, I guess, kind of tiptoeing around that disparagement clause and, you know, letting people know, like, there's a video up right now with me being interviewed by this coach. I no longer endorse her, you know.
Mm.
And so I was talking to you know, having some conversations around that. And yeah, the woman was mentally and emotionally abusive. The coach was mentally and emotionally abusive. She would, you know, berate you, you know, she charged outrageous fees and then berate you if you didn't have the money to keep up with the payments. And not just being an adult and just being like, hey, according to the contract, you're supposed to pay me. How can we work this out? It was like, sell your mother if you have to, but give me my payment, right? Like, just really psychotic behavior. And I don't know exactly what her disparagement clause said, like if it put a monetary amount, but she definitely had one. And she was, you know, not only were people not getting results, but they were also being like mentally and emotionally abused by this person. And then I had never seen it until late last year when I hired a coach, and it was like $20,000 that she can sue you for if you talk bad about her online. And it was one of those cases where, and we haven't talked about this yet, like sometimes when I go to look for mentors, right, I always am looking for how they fall into these three categories. Are they the real deal? Are they fucking delusional? Or are they manipulative and just a con artist, right? And there's some people that are actually all three. And it's important to recognize that just so because somebody's brilliant and just because they have like, they are really good at some things doesn't mean you should drink all the Kool-Aid, right?
Right.
Because the other, like I've had mentors that were 90% the real deal, like just fucking phenomenal. But they were also as wonderful as they were, they weren't as wonderful as they thought they were. There was a touch of delusion. And then
Such a delusion.
just a smidge, a huge amount of delusion. And that penchant for manipulating people, you know, and being very mentally and emotionally abusive in order to get their way, you know. And this person had that vibe, but there was something I really wanted to learn. And so, you know, I went ahead and did it. And I remember they like were going to some exotic place. It's like the Mecca for entrepreneurs. And she was like, yeah, I don't have internet. And I'm like, how can you not have internet there? Like that's where all digital nomads go to, like, that's like heaven. It's nirvana for, you know, digital nomads. And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to have internet access. And I'm like, okay, well, I want 2 weeks added onto my contract. And she's like, no, it was in my contract that I was going on this vacation. And I'm like, yeah, but you didn't say that you weren't going to have internet access. So why am I paying you for 2 weeks while you're on vacation? And you know, so that, like that situation, well, it was also in our contract, right? But I didn't ask enough questions. Like, okay, yes, you're going to be on vacation. Does this mean that we're not going to have coaching calls? Does this mean that you're not going to be available to, you know, review stuff for me? You know, what exactly does this mean? But this person also had that you can't talk about me clause. And I'm like, oh, now I see why. And I got things out of working with her. There were things that were really good about it, but there were some things that I was like, wow, this is predatory bullshit.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings on non-disparagement clauses. I feel like on one side, I get it from the legal standpoint, of course. You want to protect your, you know, protect your branding, protect your image. But then on the other side, I feel like it's part of the cost of doing business. You know, you're not going to have 5-star Google reviews every single time. And I feel like you don't necessarily have to have a non-disparagement clause if you feel like you're going to deliver, you know, or if you have, I mean, there's ways that you can still sue someone if they're a defamation of character or slander, or, you know, if they're interfering with different business contracts based on, what they're saying, or if they're deliberately going out and saying, hey, don't work with this person because X, Y, and Z, and it's causing you to lose money in your business, you don't necessarily have to have a non-disparagement clause in order to still recover from any damages that are incurred by somebody slandering your name. So I definitely offer them for clients when they ask for them. But it truly, I don't, I'm more of an NDA type person than non-disparagement. So if you feel like the conversations that we're having in this program, you just want them to be protected, I'd probably have something, on the lines of that, like, hey, this is a secret society. This is you can't speak about anything that happens in the program and have it that way over just having a non-disparagement. If you don't like me and I didn't email you in a reasonable time, don't go on Facebook saying she doesn't respond, because for one, that kind of sometimes it'll entice somebody to do it and just to test it to see, okay, are they serious? Especially if you don't have a monetary amount. Or if you have too high of a monetary amount, some people don't think, they're like, oh, this is just a game. She's just trying to do this as a scare tactic. And then you have to find out otherwise. So I think it really, really just depends. Maybe I can see like an entrepreneur that is just like the top of the chain and like the number one business coach or something, trying to protect their image at that high level. But for entrepreneurs that are really trying to build coaching programs, I don't think it's necessary. Because you don't want that to be the reason why you can't get clients, because you're scaring them off by thinking they can't share their experiences. Because we all ask for reviews, we all offer case studies. So there are going to be some times where you couldn't deliver because of whatever is going on within that group relationship or that one-on-one relationship, and that's just the cost of doing business. You can't protect. I think it's kind of overzealous sometimes when I see them with like these high dollar amounts. I think it's just utterly ridiculous. Because in order to actually go like prove it, you have to show proof of damages. So it's not just, even if you sign one and you go online and you say, this coach went on a trip for 2 weeks and didn't extend my contract for 2 weeks. She can't then just turn around and sue you for $20,000, $50,000. She's gonna have to show that direct comment made me lose $20,000, $50,000. And I don't think they realize that either.
Well, and that's where I also was looking at it, and I was like, I think more of this is the intimidation tactic. And some of the language in the contract was almost like, some of these things may not be enforceable, but it doesn't negate everything else. Yeah. Which, that's kind of standard contract language. But I was just like, I feel like this is a scare tactic for people who don't know their rights, or who don't have a lawyer they can consult with or whatever. And I appreciate you're saying that it's not fully a scare tactic, but it's also not that black and white easy for them to just turn around and like sue you, right? Let me think, were there anything else, because I want to be respectful of your time.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, so we've kind of mixed it in when we're talking about the bad. Like, what are the things that are strong indications that someone is a safe person to work with, just based on their contract? Obviously, somebody needs to be doing a lot of due diligence before they even get to the point of asking for the contract, in my opinion. But like, if they've done their due diligence and everything felt good and they got the contract, what are some good signs in the contract that this is probably something they should go ahead and do?
Yeah, so if it's a one-on-one coaching program, if it's not like just cookie cutter for everyone, I would say how it's structured. So if it's a master service agreement and then they have kind of like a proposal, but it's incorporated into the contract, because then you can see, okay, I'm getting 5 coaching calls for X amount. These are the dates, or I have until this time. So just showing the duration and termination. Making sure that if you do want some type of confidentiality, because as a business coach, if you're helping me with marketing, I want to know that anything that I'm telling you is in confidence, because I don't want you to then go talk about it in a summit or go talk about it to another client that may be my competitor,
Right.
because then all of my intellectual property is
Mhm.
then gone, gone.
Right.
The other thing, intellectual property, making sure that there's a clause stating what's owned by the coach and what's owned by you as the client. Making sure that the governing law is in there, because if there is a dispute where if you have to sue your coach, are you having to, especially in the age of online business owners, where are you suing them? Because you're then going to have to submit yourself to that jurisdiction. If you're in, I'm in North Carolina. So if you're in North Carolina and the coach is in California and their governing law says Wyoming or something, you want to make sure that it's making sense for both of you. Now, sometimes that may be like a no, it's going to be here because this is where my business is based,
Mhm.
which is fine. But those are things you need to look for, because
Mhm.
sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I've seen coaches and I can't tell where they're based out of because
Mhm.
they're
Digital
online.
nomads. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really doesn't matter because we're meeting virtually. But when it comes down to a dispute, then location matters.
Oh yeah.
Um, if there's a refund policy, depending on what type of coach it is, especially like in the health and wellness industry, if they have insurance, because if they're giving you this advice and you are using, especially like in the health industry, if something happens, they need to have some type of business insurance and to let you
Mhm.
know that there's insurance. Now, they don't have to disclose what their policy limits are, but the fact that they have insurance, indemnification, what you can sue them for, what's your responsibility, what's theirs, especially if they're working with, let's say, if they're working with like a graphic designer and the graphic designer is then outsourcing and has their own subcontractors, just
Mhm.
knowing who all the players are, so that if something happens with the copywriter, but you were with the graphic designer, but the graphic designer hired the copywriter, where the chain of command is. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah, just looking for certain things like that, and that if you're able to read it, if it's a lot of legal jargon that you don't understand, you want them to sit down with you and explain. I don't think any business owner should deny you sitting down and saying, okay, this provision means this provision means that. And if they're not able to articulate to you what's in their own contract, that's a red flag.
That is
and
the problem.
and I won't say it's a red flag, but they need to find somebody. That just means they probably got a template from somewhere and they don't even understand it themselves. Because sometimes sometimes they're having people sign contracts and they're like, oh wait, no, that's not what I meant. I meant, the opposite thing. So just having a clear understanding of what each provision means.
I love that. Natori, you have given us so much to think about.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
of course, of course. Anytime.
I really appreciate you donating your time to this, and
Sure.
yeah, this is just, it's the most, in the coaching world, there's a lot of important discussions to be had today in the
Mhm.
world at large. In the coaching world, in the online marketing space, I feel like these are the most important conversations we can be having right now,
Yeah.
because it has gotten to, it's been gross for years, and it's just not getting any better. And
Mm-mm.
it's not going to get better until people get honest and um come out and speak truthfully about their experiences,
Mhm.
and start talking about solutions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
Well, good.
any last words of wisdom you want to share before we end today?
Yeah, just when in doubt, ask for assistance, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a friend that went to legal study school or something, have a fresh set of
Paralegal.
eyes. Yeah, yeah, have a fresh set of eyes. Look at your contracts before you're signing them, or even before, because we may have some, even for the experts that we're speaking, making sure that you have somebody know and can explain to you what your contract says, because just because it has a termination clause, just because it has a governing law provision, just because it has a scope of services, you want to make sure that what you intend for it to show is actually on there. And there's no, there shouldn't be any pushback, if you're asking your service provider to explain it. So please, please, please read your contracts first, make a well-informed decision, and then submit your payments.
That is just golden advice. Golden advice. And I mean, y'all, I have been in the online space since 2013. I've been coaching since 2009, and I've never heard someone give that explicit advice. And it's so common sense and so brilliant at the same time. So
Thank you. We forget. We forget. And sometimes it's because we're not offered the opportunity, to, because we
yeah,
don't think to ask. We
right.
think, oh, they're going to make good because they have a landing page. Well, that landing page may just be up for whatever the time being is. And then it's up to you to have to prove, oh, yes, this was the page. So having a contract, again, it doesn't have to be 10, 15, 20 pages. It could be a solid one page with the signature page, but just making sure that everything that you want or what you expect to get is put on paper.
Yes, 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 yes. And just be a truly empowered buyer and ask questions and refuse to be rushed. Um,
Absolutely.
wow. Well, we'll definitely have to have you come back. And oh yeah, you've got a
Sure.
freebie for them.
Yes.
What is the freebie that you're offering?
Sure. So it is my 8 steps or 8 things that every business owner needs to make sure that they are legally compliant. So we talked a lot about contracts. Contracts is just one piece of the puzzle. So let me see if I have the link. If I don't have the link, I'll go back and drop it in the group so that anyone that needs, just like a reminder, I call it my holy grail checklist for entrepreneurs, just so, as you're building your businesses, whether it's your second or third business, sometimes everyone needs to always be reminded and get back to the legal basics. So just making sure that in addition to contracts, all the other things are in place as well.
Love that. That is such a generous gift. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Of
I really just,
course.
it's always so lovely to talk to you.
You as
And
well.
I always walk away from our conversations like much better educated about, my rights in the law and everything. And I know that we're just barely scratching the surface of everything that you know. Um, but yeah, thank you again so much
Of
for being
course.
here.
Of course. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And thanks for everybody who's in the summit. All of our attendees, feel free to reach out and ask Natori questions. She's not going to let you like get a bunch of free stuff and like take advantage of her time, but she will answer your questions, and not try to pounce on you in your moment of vulnerability.
Sure, absolutely.
So we're going to sign off. There's, I think, 7 speakers before Natori. And these videos are going to be up through November 12th. So you've got plenty of time to catch up. If you can't watch them all, just watch the ones that are for things that you're currently thinking about hiring for, right? So that you just are going to make the best decision. And then I haven't fully announced this yet, but I'm going to come up with a way for these to kind of be evergreen and available too. So if you can't watch them before the 12th, or you're like, oh my God, I want to watch all these because I'm going to need all these things at one point in my business, don't stress yourself out. I got you. So thanks everybody. We appreciate you. And yeah, tune in tomorrow for more interviews.
All righty. Bye.
Let's see. How do I